The winter solstice festival rages through the castle, but I am invisible. I polish silver in the shadows while Alpha King Joshua holds court, his black armor gleaming in candlelight. 5 years I have served him. 5 years he has never truly seen me. I am Omega. He is Alpha King. That is all the kingdom needs to know. But tonight, when Clara drags me to the merchant fair, everything changes. Among the stalls of spiced wine and trinkets, I find it. An ornate golden chest, intricate scrollwork catching torchlight, royal crests engraved on every surface. And there, unmistakable, the initials that make my wolf howl with recognition. Queen Elara, his murdered mother. Clara hisses that I am insane. The chest costs 3 months' wages I do not have, but my hands are already reaching. My coins already spilling onto the merchant's table. Something ancient and undeniable pulls me forward. The Alpha King needs this, and for the first time in 5 years of invisibility, I am going to make him see me. The solstice feast roared around me, but I might as well have been a ghost. Music pounded against the stone walls, drums and pipes warring with the howls of drunken warriors. Torches burned hot and bright, throwing wild light over banners, blades, and overflowing platters of meat. Wolves laughed, argued, flirted, their scents thick with wine and power. At the far end of the hall, on the raised dais, sat the center of all that noise. Alpha King Joshua. His black armor drank the firelight, edges gleaming like sharpened night. Dark hair brushed his shoulders, braids tied back from a face that never gave the court more than it needed, controlled, unreadable, a king carved from steel. He listened to a captain boasting about some border skirmish, one elbow on the arm of his throne, expression almost bored, almost. I had watched him long enough to see what others missed. The tension in his jaw, the heaviness in his shoulders, the exhaustion buried in his eyes. The crown weighed more than his armor, and it was killing him inch by inch. The chest in my arms felt like it held the key to that weight, or the stone that would drag me under with him. "Vivian," Clara's whisper sliced through the noise as she pretended to rearrange bread on the servant's table. "Last chance. Hide that thing in the laundry and forget it exists." My fingers tightened around cold metal. The ornate box dug into my palms, scrollwork biting skin, the engraved crest and initials pressed against my thumb like a brand. Elara Selene, Joshua's murdered mother. "If I don't do it now, I never will," I murmured. My throat was dry, my wolf pacing inside my chest. Tonight or never. "He's an Alpha King," Clara hissed. "You're an Omega with a death wish. You walk up there with a royal relic that disappeared the night the Queen died, and you think he'll thank you? I don't know what he'll do." I swallowed, hard. I only know I have to give this back to him. It sounded pathetic out loud, flimsy against the thunder of the hall. But the pull hadn't faded since the merchant's stall. It had only sharpened. Every time I thought about shoving the chest under my cot and pretending I'd never seen it, my wolf snarled. "Now," she urged, "before you lose your nerve." Joshua shifted on the throne, turning his head to say something to the beta at his right. Firelight skimmed his cheekbones, his mouth, the faint shadows under his eyes. It hit me like always a rush of wanting so fierce it bordered on pain. 5 years of serving him. 5 years of refilling his goblet, delivering reports, silently memorizing the cadence of his voice. 5 years he'd never truly seen me. I drew a breath so deep it hurt, squared my shoulders, and stepped away from the safety of the wall. The first few strides went unnoticed. Then the nearest table quieted, then the next. By the time I reached the center of the hall, conversations had thinned to ragged murmurs. An Omega walking straight toward the royal dais was not a normal part of the evening's entertainment. Heat climbed my neck. Instinct screamed at me to drop, show my throat, back away. Omegas did not climb steps meant for alphas and kings. I set my foot on the first stone step. Joshua's gaze snapped to me. Those dark eyes pinned me where I stood, more dangerous than any drawn blade. For a heartbeat, the entire hall seemed to hold its breath in his lungs. Vivian. My name sounded different on his tongue, deeper, heavier. He rarely spoke directly to servants. Hearing him now made my chest tighten. "Explain why you are walking onto my dais during court." My knees wanted to fold. I forced them to lock. "Your Majesty," I said, praying my voice didn't shake. "Forgive the intrusion. I have a gift, for the solstice." A ripple of disbelief moved through the room. Gifts for the king came from nobles, from allied alphas, from people with titles and teeth. Not from nameless omegas in plain dresses. Joshua's gaze dropped to the chest. The world narrowed to the line of his mouth, the slight flaring of his nostrils, the subtle stilling of his body. "Come here," he said. My legs carried me up the remaining steps before my brain could suggest turning and running. I stopped a little more than an arm's length away, bowing just enough to avoid disrespect, not enough to lose sight of him. Holding my breath, I offered the chest. His hand brushed mine as he took it. Heat shot up my arm, sharp and shocking, as if my nerves had forgotten how to handle direct contact. If he felt it too, he gave no sign, at least not at first. Then his fingers tightened. The steady, controlled king faltered. Just a fraction, but I saw it. His thumb traced the crest, then the initials, as if disbelieving his own senses. The veins in his hand stood out. His chest rose a little faster. "Where did you get this?" His voice had dropped, rougher, the edges no longer sanded smooth for the court. "At the fair, Majesty," I said. "From an antique merchant. He didn't know what it was." My heart slammed against my ribs. I saw the crest, the initials. I thought, "You thought?" he pressed. "I thought it might have belonged to someone important to you," I finished, because admitting I'd been dragged by instinct sounded insane even to me. He flicked his fingers without looking away from me. The command was silent but absolute. The hall erupted into motion. Benches scraped, voices rose and cut off, boots thudded. Within moments, the sea of bodies was flowing toward the doors, nobles and warriors bowing as they hurried past. Musicians stopped mid-note, clutching their instruments like shields. Guards remained at the far ends, stone-faced. Otherwise, the vast hall emptied around us. The door boomed shut. We were alone. Joshua drew a slow breath and pressed the catch on the chest. The lid lifted with a soft click that echoed like a crack of thunder. Velvet lined the interior, worn where jewelry had once rested. Only one piece remained, a single silver hairpin shaped like a crescent moon. He lifted it with trembling fingers. His composure shattered. For the first time since I'd known him, the king vanished, and a son stood in his place. Grief bared his teeth through Joshua's eyes, raw and unguarded. Whatever he saw in that tiny piece of metal reached down into him and dragged something broken to the surface. "This," he said, barely more than a whisper, "was on my mother's dressing table the night she died." My stomach dropped. The stories had always been whispers in the servants' corridors. Queen dead, blood on stone, traitors in the dark. But seeing it hit him made those stories feel thin and cruel. "It vanished," he went on, voice rough. "Guards swore nothing was taken. We turned this castle upside down. I paid fortunes in gold to people who promised they could find it." His jaw clenched. 10 years, nothing. He looked at me then. Really looked. The force of it stole my breath. "And now you walk into my feast, hand it to me, and call it a gift." "I didn't know the details," I said quickly. "Only that she was murdered. I saw the crest, the initials, and my wolf." I stopped, heat burning my face. "I just knew it had to be yours." Silence coiled between us. Joshua closed the chest carefully, as if afraid it might break, and set it beside the throne. When he spoke again, some of the rawness had retreated, but not all. The king was back, crowned by fury instead of iron. "Describe the merchant," he said. "Everything. Face, build, scent, accent, the stall." I gave him every detail I could remember. Weathered skin, scar on the chin, fingers stained with oil and ink, the salt and smoke scent, like he'd lived half his life on ships and the other half in dusty warehouses. The crate with a coastal port sigil burned into the side. The way his eyes had flickered to the crest and back to my face, calculating. By the time I finished, Joshua's expression had sharpened into something dangerous. "This chest should never have left my mother's rooms," he said. "If it has resurfaced now, it means someone kept it all these years. Someone tied to that night." His hand flexed, knuckles whitening. For a heartbeat, I thought he might drive his fist into the nearest pillar. Instead, he took a breath, leashing whatever rage clawed at him. That control, more than his power, made my wolf take notice. "This will be dangerous," he said. "Whoever held on to this won't appreciate us tearing open old wounds. They may already be watching. You understand that, Vivian?" I did. The moment I'd handed him the chest, the world had split in two before and after. There was no going back to quietly polishing goblets in the shadows. Yes, I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. I understand. Yet you still brought it to me. You looked... I swallowed. Honesty or safety? I chose honesty. Empty. Like the crown was eating you alive. If it was hers, if it meant something, I thought it might give you back a piece of what you lost. I held his gaze, even though my heart hammered. I didn't think about danger until too late. Something flickered across his face, quick and almost startled, as if he wasn't used to anyone seeing past the armor. You acted on instinct, he said quietly. On your wolf. Yes. Good. I need that. He stepped closer. His scent hit me full force pine forests after rain, cold iron, and something warm and electric undercutting it all. It wrapped around me, seeped into my lungs. My wolf froze, then surged forward, ears pricked, tail high. Mine. The word slammed through me so hard I almost staggered. I clamped my teeth together, fighting to keep my expression neutral. Omegas did not think words like that about kings. Fate did not link lowly servants to alphas who ruled kingdoms. Yet when Joshua's nostrils flared, his pupils blown a shade wider, I knew he felt something too. Some answering snap of recognition neither of us had expected. He leaned in just enough that only I could hear him. I want your help, he said. Your memory, your instincts. From this moment, you answer to me alone regarding this chest. No one else knows it has returned, and no one else will until I choose. His gaze held mine, steady and unflinching. Will you stand with me in this, Vivian? Even if it puts you in the crosshairs of whoever killed my mother. Every reasonable part of me screamed, no. Go back. Fade out. Be invisible. Let warriors and nobles chase ghosts while you survive. But I thought of the way his hands had shaken. The boy who'd lost his queen. The man carrying a kingdom and grief in the same tired shoulders. I thought of 5 years of being unseen, and the single, searing moment when his eyes had finally locked on mine and refused to let go. Yes, I said. I'll stand with you. Power seemed to tremble in the air between us, like the moment right before lightning hits. His wolf pushed against his skin, mine pressed against mine, desperate to close the distance. For the first time in a decade, Joshua murmured. More to himself than to me. I have a real lead. His gaze darkened, something fierce and hungry burning there now. And for the first time in 5 years, he added, voice low, I see you. The words sent a shiver through me that had nothing to do with fear. The solstice feast roared on somewhere beyond the stone walls. But in that echoing, empty hall, with his mother's stolen chest between us and our wolves straining toward one another, my world narrowed to a single, terrifying truth. One reckless gift had just shattered everything, and I was not sure I wanted to put any of it back together. By dawn, the castle felt strangled by silence. Rumor moved faster than any messenger. But whenever I walked into a room, it died. Servants dropped their eyes. Conversations snapped shut. No one wanted to be caught talking about the Omega who had walked onto the king's dais and handed him a ghost. I was stacking goblets in the scullery when a familiar voice cut through the steam and clatter. Vivian. I spun. Joshua filled the doorway, stripped of armor but no less dangerous. Dark tunic, sleeves rolled, throat bare. Stubble shadowed his jaw, his eyes darker than usual, as if the night hadn't let him sleep. 2 guards waited behind him like carved stone. I wiped my wet hands on my skirt. Your Majesty. Get your things, he said. You're moving. My mind stuttered. Moving where? To the royal wing. Every sound in the scullery stopped. A pot hung mid-air in someone's hand. Water dripped in the sink like it was afraid to splash too loud. My lord, I managed. That isn't necessary. I can keep my head down. No one cares we're an Omega. That's the problem. His gaze swept the cramped, open room. You're exposed. You bought the chest. You spoke to the merchant. If someone wants to erase that mistake, they'll come here. His jaw flexed. The servants' wing is a corridor of open throats. I swallowed. The court will lose their minds. Good, he said. They're overdue. He meant it. That more than anything told me arguing was useless. Clara slipped to my side, fingers digging into my elbow. Go, she whispered. We'll talk later. preferably while you still have a pulse. My wolf had no interest in argument either. She liked the idea of being closer to him far too much. My worldly possessions fit into a single satchel, 2 spare dresses, a comb, a wooden wolf my father had carved, the few coins I had left. Clara crushed me in a hug. If he hurts you, I'll poison his tea. You like living, I breathed. I like you more. Joshua waited in the corridor, impatience a tight line in his shoulders. The guards fell in behind us as he led the way through passages I usually cleaned, not walked. We crossed an archway where armored warriors stood at attention. The air beyond felt different, thinner, colder, scented with expensive oils and old magic. The royal wing. My steps faltered. They're going to think. I know what they'll think, he said. Let them. It will keep them guessing while I figure out who wants my mother's ghost buried. At the end of the corridor, he stopped before a heavy door banded in iron and opened it himself. The chamber inside glowed with firelight. A thick rug softened the stone, a wide bed waited under furs, and tall windows spilled in pale morning light. Shelves lined one wall, filled with worn books. It felt nothing like the echoing grandeur of the great hall. Warm, lived in. This was my sister's room, he said quietly, before we sent her to the coast. You have a sister? The question slipped out. Have, he corrected. She's alive, which is more than I can say for others. His eyes flicked away. You'll be safe here. Wards on the windows. Only my key and the captain's open this door. 2 warriors posted outside. It's too much, I said, clutching my satchel strap. It's not enough. His voice cut clean. I won't have you gutted in a hallway because you did the right thing and I didn't guard you. The words hit like a physical touch. Did the right thing. I'll have food brought up, he added. And the files. Files? I echoed. From the original investigation, he said. If you're going to be in danger because of this, you deserve to know what we're facing. You saw things no one else did at the fair. I want those eyes on my mother's case. I'm an Omega servant, I said. Not a strategist. You're observant, he countered. You remember details my commanders overlook, and every noble who had a chance to solve this already failed. His gaze cut to mine. I'm done pretending they're smarter than you. Something inside me cracked open at that. I'll return after council, he said. Stay in this wing. If you step outside it, you do so on my arm or with my guards. Understood? Yes, your majesty. For a heartbeat, he just looked at me. Expression unreadable. Then he turned and left, door closing with a soft click that sounded uncomfortably like fate. My wolf prowled the room, pleased and restless all at once. Sanctuary, she purred. And a cage. By midday, his study table had disappeared under parchment. He sat behind a massive desk, no armor, just a black shirt clinging to his shoulders. The room smelled of ink, old paper, and him. Guard reports, healer notes, diagrams of the Queen's chambers, patrol logs, all piled in organized chaos. He slid a stack toward me. These are the files from the night she died. You know the end of the story. I want you to see how badly the beginning was handled. I took a seat opposite him, pulse jumping as his gaze met mine. You said she fought for Omegas, I said. What did that mean? In practice. He leaned back, eyes going distant for a moment. She put Omegas in places the council said they didn't belong. The archives. The healers' halls. Accounts. She argued that a pack wastes half its strength if it keeps half its wolves in chains. Matthias hated it. Lord Matthias, his uncle's closest man. He called it dangerous, Joshua went on. Said giving Omegas leverage would upset the balance. Told my father that breaking tradition invited weakness. My mother told him he confused control with strength. What did she find? I asked, sifting through pages. Missing gold, he said. War funds siphoned off into private accounts, names buried under codes. She brought me ledgers 3 months before she died. His hand tightened around a parchment. She thought someone in the inner circle was building something, an army, or options. And Matthias? I asked. He appeared the next day with his own discovery, Joshua said, a junior steward skimming coin. He wrapped everything up with a neat bow. My mother didn't buy it. She kept digging. 3 weeks later, she was dead. The steward was found with his throat torn out and everyone called it justice. Too clean, too perfect. He nodded toward the patrol logs. Last page. Read it. I flipped to the final entry. Lord Matthias entered Queen Ilara's corridor at twilight to seek private counsel. No guards permitted inside. Exited 1 hour later. Queen dismissed her guard for the night shortly thereafter. A chill slid down my spine. He was the last one seen with her. Yes. Joshua's voice roughened. But when I asked questions, he had answers ready. She liked privacy. She sent her guards away all the time. And I wanted to believe him, because the alternative meant admitting I'd been blind to the traitor at my father's side. You were 19, I said. You trusted who you'd been taught to trust. That isn't blindness, it's survival. Tell that to her, he murmured. I lost my parents at 15, I said. The words tasted like old smoke. Rogues. That's what they told us. My aunt said rogues don't move like that somebody pointed them at our house. I clung to the official story anyway. Random makes grief tolerable. Targeted makes it a weapon you're waiting to see again. His gaze sharpened. Softer somehow and harder. I didn't know. No one asked, I said. It came out sharper than I meant. We were just another dead Omega family. Something like guilt flickered across his face. Keeping distance is easier when you don't know their stories. Easier, I said. Not better. He studied me for a long heartbeat. There's another reason I stayed away. My heart stumbled. From me. Yes, his jaw flexed. I've watched you for years, Vivian. How you rearranged councils so I didn't work until dawn every day. How you shielded younger Omegas from punishments. How you memorized visiting Alpha's temperaments so you could intercept disaster before it started. His eyes darkened. My wolf noticed you. Too much. Heat flared up my throat. I was just doing my job. You were doing far more, he said. And I could not afford to care. Because I'm Omega, I said quietly. Because I'm king. His gaze didn't flinch. Kings do not take Omega mates from their own staff without consequences. Alliances break. Houses rebel. Enemies smell blood. A mate is leverage. You become the knife at my throat. And at mine, I said. Yes. The word came out rough. So I built walls. Pretended I didn't hear my wolf every time you walked into a room. And now? I asked, even though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. Now you've put the one piece of physical evidence from that night back in my hands, he said. Now whoever kept it for 10 years might come for us both. Now pretending not to see you is a luxury I don't have. The bond between us hummed, low and hot. My wolf pressed forward, ears pricked, drawn to the faint gold circling his pupils. He dragged his gaze away first, as if physically tearing it off me. We start with motive, he said brusquely. Matthias fought every law my mother wrote for Omegas. We find the one that threatened him the most. We find why he risked killing a queen. He shoved a stack of proposals across the desk. Margins crawled with different handwriting. Ilara's careful script, sharper notes in darker ink. Our fingers brushed. The jolt made us both still. Sparks shot up my arm, settled hot under my skin. His breath hitched almost silently. For a heartbeat, the room felt too small, the air too thick. We pulled back at the same time, chairs scraping. Work, he said, almost under his breath. We work. So we did. We read in near silence, broken only by the crackle of the fire and the scratch of parchment. Ilara's reforms unfolded between us. Rights to refuse breeding contracts, wages for Omega labor, education for packless wolves. Every gain for Omegas was a loss of leverage for someone like Matthias. As hours slipped by, the study changed. Joshua stopped feeling like a distant king and more like a man sitting across from me with ink on his fingers and shadows under his eyes. He asked about my aunt, about the pack I'd lost. I learned he used to sneak out of lessons to help his mother cook, that he still baked bread when stress kept him from sleeping. Little cracks in the walls. Small, dangerous truths. Every time our shoulders brushed as we leaned over the same page, every time his scent wrapped around me in a stronger coil, the pull between us tightened. The mate bond wasn't a roar yet, but it was no longer a whisper either. It sat between us like a secret we both refused to name and couldn't stop circling. By the time the fire had burned low, my eyes ached, and my heart felt raw. Forbidden sanctuary, my wolf murmured as Joshua rubbed at the bridge of his nose, exhaustion written in every line of him. Not just this room. Him. I looked at the man across from me, the king I'd loved in silence, the wolf bound by duty, the son hunting his mother's ghost, and understood with terrifying clarity. The danger outside these walls might kill me, but what was happening between us could ruin us both, long before any blade ever found our throats. The snow hadn't melted in 3 days. It clung to the castle roofs and courtyard stones like the kingdom itself was holding its breath. We found the first thread in numbers, not blood. Joshua slid a ledger toward me, the columns of ink neat and uncompromising. "These are the bank records our less lawful allies pulled," he said. "Account belonged to a wolf named Darius Gray. Rogue. No pack allegiance on record." My finger traced the dates, small deposits, irregular, then suddenly 3 large payments, spaced 2 weeks apart, all in the last year. "And 3 months ago," I murmured. "Everything stops." "Because Darius died 3 months ago," Joshua said. "Fell down a set of stairs according to the official report." His mouth twisted. "Rogues don't just fall, they're pushed, or they jump." I scanned the sender line again. The money came from a noble account, but the name's blocked. "Masked," he said. "Shell accounts, false fronts. Someone with access to old money and no imagination." "Matthias?" I asked. "Maybe." He tapped the page. "Or someone who learned from him." The chest sat between us on the table, its gold dulled by age. I could feel it watching us, a silent witness that refused to speak plainly. "So we have a dead rogue, secret payments, and your mother's chest in a merchant's hands," I said. "How does Darius fit into the night she died?" He would have been what, mid-20s? "His age matches the profile the healers gave for the killer," Joshua said quietly. "Height, build, claw pattern. We always assumed the assassin died when the steward's throat was torn out. But what if that was just another loose end tied off? A convenient body to blame." "So Darius could have been the real killer," I said. "And someone paid him to hold on to trophies until they were safe to sell." His jaw clenched. "Trophies." The word tasted foul. My gaze dropped to the chest. I remembered his hands shaking when he'd opened it, the way he'd looked almost young for a second. "If Darius had other items," I said, "they might all connect to other crimes, other wolves. Whoever paid him would not want that collection on public display." His eyes met mine, dark and hard. "Which means the moment one piece surfaced, they started hunting for whoever bought it. Me." My wolf lifted her head, hackles prickling. "So we go back to where I bought it," I said. "See what surfaced besides the chest." He shook his head. "You are not walking back into that fair alone." "I wasn't planning to," I said. "But I am the only one the merchant will recognize. If Darius's things went through his stall, he knows more than he put on the tag." Joshua studied me for a long moment, weighing risk against necessity. I could almost see it, the king and the wolf arguing behind his eyes. Finally, he exhaled. "We go together. In daylight, with guards in the crowd." "Subtle," I said. "I'm done being subtle," he replied. "Someone sent a killer into my mother's rooms and bought his silence for a decade. They can live with feeling watched for a change." The winter market had thinned since the solstice, but the cold kept scents sharp. Spiced wine, roasting nuts, wet wool, wood smoke. Underneath it all, threads of fear. Wolves knew when their king walked among them in plain clothes. They just pretended they didn't look. Joshua kept to my left, not quite touching, every inch of him coiled. To anyone else, he was just a broad-shouldered male in dark leather. To my wolf, he was gravity. "There," I murmured, spotting the stall. The antique merchant had fewer wares now, but the same careful hands, the same watchful eyes. He saw me first, then clocked the tall male at my side, and his pupils shrank. "Back again, little Omega," he said too brightly. "Did the box disappoint?" "It did the opposite," I said. "We came to talk about where it came from." "We?" His gaze flicked to Joshua, lingered, then dropped away as if burned. Instinct recognized power even when rank was hidden. "Inventory comes from many places, estates, ships, collectors. Hard to keep track." Joshua smiled, slow and cold. "Fortunately, we're very good at helping people remember." The merchant's throat bobbed. He reached under the counter, and for a heartbeat my muscles tensed, expecting steel. Instead, he laid out a folded parchment. "This is what I have," he said. "Consignment list. Items from a house outside the city. Wolf named Darius. All legit. Paperwork signed. Taxes paid. My fingers skimmed the list. Jewelry, art, a set of carved bone knives, the chest. He sell it himself? I asked. No. The merchant shook his head. Everything came through his son. Marcus. Said his father died, debts to pay, needed coin fast. Didn't want to answer questions. Wolves in grief rarely do. What did Marcus look like? Joshua asked, voice mild. Tall, brown hair, scar here. The merchant touched his cheek. Eyes like a cornered dog. Jumped at every shout. Smelled. Wrong. Wrong how? I pressed. Like a wolf trying to pretend he isn't, he said. And like he'd been around a lot of blood that wasn't his. A chill crawled over my skin. Joshua's gaze met mine. We were thinking the same thing. Darius hadn't kept his life clean after the queen. Why would his son? As we turned to leave, a voice cut across the market. You're sure no one asked about the chest after I left? I froze. At the far edge of the stall, a male leaned against a post, hood low, hands in his coat, brown hair, scar along his cheek, eyes sharp and narrow, scanning the crowd even as he spoke casually to another vendor. Marcus. The merchant stiffened, then forced a smile. No one, he lied. Just the girl, at the auction. Bid like her life depended on it. Marcus's gaze slid over the crowd, dismissing faces until it landed on me. Recognition flared. His posture changed. Relaxed slouch, sharpening into predator focus. His eyes flicked from me to the merchant, then to Joshua at my side. Something calculating moved behind them. He pushed away from the post. All lazy charm gone. My wolf snapped. Get out! Joshua shifted closer, his hand brushing the small of my back, subtle and possessive. We keep walking, he said under his breath. Do not run. Guards have him marked. He's coming this way, I murmured. I know. Marcus angled through the crowd, weaving between stalls. His smile was pleasant, empty. Funny thing about markets, he said as he drew alongside us, voice low. You never know who you'll run into twice. Stranger things have happened, Joshua said, his tone bland enough to fool anyone who didn't hear the threat underneath. Marcus's gaze flicked to the satchel at my hip, to the place where the chest had been days ago. My father's collection attracted particular buyers, he said. I've been curious who would want such specific pieces. Specific how? I asked, playing dumb. Sentimental, he said. Trophies, you might say. Things that meant something to the people they were taken from. Joshua's hand pressed firmer against my back, the only sign he hadn't ripped Marcus's throat out for using that word. Why? Marcus tilted his head, studying me. Did the little box mean something to you, Omega? It was pretty, I said flatly. I like pretty things. His gaze sharpened. I'll be asking the merchant for his records, he said. It's important I know exactly where my father's belongings went. Old debts, you understand. No, I thought. Old crimes. We understand debts, Joshua replied. They have a way of coming due. For a moment, just one, Marcus's eyes met his and caught. Something like recognition flashed there, not of Joshua's face, but of what he was. Of who he was. He smiled, slow and thin. Enjoy the market. He melted back into the crowd, already angling toward the merchant's stall. My lungs finally remembered how to work. He's looking for the chest, I whispered. He's looking for witnesses, Joshua said. And he just found two. We stood in the middle of the winter market, the noise and the scents and the cold swirling around us, while somewhere behind us the son of a dead rogue traced the trail of his father's sins straight to our feet. Someone powerful was watching, and they were running out of places to hide. Joshua hated the idea before I finished saying it. No, he said, palm flat on the desk hard enough to rattle the inkwell. Absolutely not. You need Marcus talking, I answered. He already saw my face. He's suspicious. If someone is going to draw him out, it has to be me. I can draw him out just fine with a cell and a pair of shackles. And then he'll shut down, I said. You arrest him now. He lawyers his way through every question and calls you a paranoid king arresting a grieving son. You let him think he's hunting a scared Omega. He gets cocky, and we hear what he actually knows. His jaw clenched, the muscles in his forearms flexed, tendons standing out under skin. You're asking me to use you as bait. I'm offering, I corrected. There's a difference. He pushed away from the desk and paced to the window, hands on his hips, staring out at the snow-laced courtyard. His wolf pressed just under his skin. I could feel it, restless and furious. Vivian, if he realizes you're connected to me, he already suspects, I cut in. He saw us together. He went straight to the merchant, asking who bought your mother's chest. The only way forward is through him. He turned, eyes darker than I'd ever seen them. If he touches you, then your guards will break him, I said. You'll be 10 paces away. I'll wear the crystal. We get his confession, or at least the trail he's following. You promised you'd let me choose, remember? In the hall, when you asked if I'd stand with you. He flinched, just slightly, at his own words thrown back at him. This is me standing, I said softly. The room hung on the edge of his decision. Finally, he swore under his breath, low and vicious. Fine, he bit out. We do it my way, guard wall in plain clothes. You stay in the open, no alleys, no rooms with doors that shut. The moment I say your name, you walk to me and let them handle the rest. No heroics. I'm Omega, I said. Heroics aren't usually my problem. A flicker of reluctant amusement touched his mouth. You are the exception to every rule I have ever had. He crossed to a locked drawer, produced a small crystal no larger than my thumbnail, threaded on a thin chain. Wear it under your cloak, he said. It records sound. If Marcus gives us anything, I want it carved in stone. Do you trust your mages that much? I asked, taking it. I trust the ones my mother trained, he said. She built half this castle's secrets. I'm just learning to use them. His fingers brushed my throat as he helped fasten the chain. Heat flared under my skin. The bond between us pulsed, sharp and sudden, like it had teeth. Last chance to back out, he murmured. I'd rather be bait than baggage, I said. Let's go. The market felt smaller this time, the noise thinner, the cold sharper. Joshua kept his distance, blending into a cluster of shoppers, but I could feel him like a second heartbeat at my back. I went to the antique stall alone. The merchant saw me and went white. You need to stop coming here, he hissed under his breath. You're going to get us both killed. By who? I asked quietly. Marcus? His eyes darted past me. Don't say his name. Too late, another voice drawled. I turned. Marcus stood a few paces away, hands in his coat, eyes bright with too much interest. In daylight he looked older than I'd first thought, late 20s maybe, the scar along his cheek a pale slash. His smile didn't touch his eyes. There she is, he said, the girl who likes pretty things. I buy what I can afford, I said. Or what I could. My hand brushed the empty place at my hip where the chest had been. It's already gone. Already gone where? He asked lightly. Home. I met his gaze, let my shoulders curl in just enough to look small. I told you, I like pretty things. His eyes narrowed, tracking the tremor I pretended to have in my fingers. And what did you like about that one? He asked. The crest? The initials? The story you didn't know you were holding? The merchant shifted uneasily. Marcus, perhaps this isn't the place. Shut up, Marcus said without looking at him. The air around us tightened. My wolf bristled. It wasn't supposed to be sold, he said, stepping closer. That chest. It was a mistake. Things like that don't belong on tables next to trinkets. They belong in fire, or in the ground with the people they were taken from. Taken from? I echoed, letting confusion lace my voice. His gaze sharpened. You think my father collected those pieces because he liked art? He was paid to keep them, paid to hold on to little pieces of other wolves' nightmares. His smile went thin. Someone didn't finish their burn pile 10 years ago, and now I have to clean it up. Every instinct screamed to step back. I held my ground. I just saw a chest, I said. If it was so dangerous, why let it anywhere near a market? Because my father died before he could do what he was supposed to, Marcus snapped, and the vultures he owed wanted their gold back. Darius, I said deliberately, watching his face. Your father died 3 months ago, fell downstairs. His eyes flashed. You've been asking questions. Your merchant talks when he's scared, I said. The merchant flinched. Marcus's hand shot out, grabbing the front of my cloak, yanking me closer. His breath hit my face, hot and sour. "You have no idea what you're playing with, Omega," he hissed. "Give me the chest and maybe you live long enough to regret buying it." My heart slammed, but fear came with clarity. His fingers on my cloak, not my throat. His posture angled away from the crowd, toward the nearest alley. I didn't look at Joshua. I didn't need to. "Let her go," a voice said, calm and lethal. Marcus froze. Joshua stood a few strides away, surrounded by ordinary-looking shoppers who weren't ordinary at all. His guards. I recognized two from the palace, their eyes flat and hungry, hands near hidden blades. "Family outing?" Marcus asked, loosening his grip but not releasing completely. "Or did you decide to slum it today?" "Say my title and you'll regret it," Joshua said softly. Our gazes met for a fraction of a second. His eyes flicked to the crystal at my throat, then to Marcus's hand. Permission and promise, all in one. "Take your hands off her," he said, "and maybe I'll listen when you pretend you're just a concerned son." Marcus laughed once, sharp. "You think I don't know who you are, or who she suddenly belongs to?" His fingers tightened. "You let your Omega wander where my father's ghosts are for sale, and you think I'm the threat?" Joshua's wolf surged to the surface, power rolling off him in a wave that made my knees want to buckle. "Last warning," he said. Marcus's gaze flicked around, taking in the quiet shoppers who weren't really shopping, the way exits had subtly filled. Calculation flashed, then retreat. He released my cloak. "Enjoy your pretty box," he murmured to me. "But know this. Whoever paid my father is still alive. They don't like mistakes. And you're a very expensive one." He turned, strolling away as if nothing had happened, swallowed by the crowd. Joshua was at my side in an instant, his hand on my shoulder, grounding and furious. "Are you hurt?" "No," I said. My voice shook for real now. He talked. "Did the crystal catch it?" "It did," he said, "and we got more than you heard." Back in his study, the recording played Marcus's words in cold, disembodied echo. "Paid to keep them, burn pile." Someone didn't finish. "Whoever paid my father is still alive." Joshua laid another set of papers in front of me, letters, cramped handwriting in faded ink. "Guard search of Darius's house," he said. "Hidden under floorboards. Correspondence between him and a patron. No name, just instructions, payments, and one clear promise." I read the line twice before the meaning settled. "You will never know who I am," I whispered. "Only that if you talk, your son dies first." "Darius died," Joshua said. "Marcus lived." The patron kept his bargain. We stared at the letters, the crystal, the ghost of a nobleman, arrogant enough to think he could erase a queen and buy silence forever. He hadn't counted on a stupid Omega in love with a tired king picking up his unfinished burn pile. The throne room smelled of incense and fear. Senior nobles filled the space like crows on a carcass, silks rustling, jewels flashing, smiles sharp. Lord Matthias stood near the front, silver hair immaculate, one hand resting on his cane like age, not power, weighed him down. Joshua sat on the throne in full armor, crown set low, eyes colder than winter stone. I stood to his right, half a step behind, close enough that his scent steadied my lungs. "Begin," he said. The captain of the guard stepped forward, unrolling a scroll. "Records confirm multiple payments from a masked noble account into the possession of Darius Grey, a rogue wolf with no declared pack. Dates align with the period after Queen Alara's death. Recently recovered letters show Darius was hired to keep certain items trophies from various attacks. One of those items was the Queen's jewelry chest." Gasps rippled through the hall. Matthias's face tightened with practiced grief. "A rogue," he said. "After all these years, we finally have our assassin. My king, this is—" "Not the whole truth," Joshua cut in. He rose from the throne and descended the steps, every stride controlled, deliberate. He stopped in front of Matthias, close enough that the older male had to tilt his head back. "Darius was paid," Joshua said, "but he never knew by whom. The patron hid behind accounts and coded letters, promised his son would die first if he ever talked." His gaze swept the room. "Tell me, who in this chamber had access to those accounts? To my mother's schedule? To the guard rotations?" Silence. Too quick, too careful. Matthias bowed his head. "We all did, at one time or another. Your mother trusted us." "Trusted you," I thought, breathing in slowly. Their scents washed over me. Nervous sweat, expensive oils, the sour tang of fear. But under Matthias's polished exterior was something sharper, not fear. Calculation. His heartbeat didn't spike. His breathing didn't hitch. He smelled, prepared. He already knew. I am glad, at least, Matthias said smoothly, that we have someone to blame. This Darius. We should drag his name through every gutter in the kingdom. He's already dead, Joshua said. He fell downstairs 3 months ago. Convenient, isn't it? Matthias's eyes flickered. Just once. Rogues live violently. They die the same. But his son still collects his payments, Joshua said. And the letters we found under Darius's floorboards show he was receiving instructions long before my mother died, long before the steward conveniently took the blame for everything. He nodded to a guard, who stepped forward with a tray of documents. Joshua lifted one and read, voice like a blade. The Queen suspects too much. You will be paid double for this last job. The chest and its contents are to be removed. Keep them, guard them. If my name is ever spoken, your son dies before you do. He let the words hang. Then he looked straight at Matthias. You were the last one in her rooms that night, he said. You argued against every law she wrote for Omegas. You pushed the steward forward as a scapegoat. And the codes in these letters match the ones in the accounts you managed for my father. The hall seemed to shrink. Nobles edged away from Matthias by inches, like distance might save them. Matthias lifted his chin. You accuse me, my king? I lay out facts, Joshua said. If the facts choke you, that's on you. The older wolf's scent shifted, sour creeping through the spices. Not guilt, cornered pride. I have served your line since before you shifted, he said. I bled for this kingdom while you were still chasing practice dummies. And my mother bled for wanting Omegas treated like people, Joshua shot back. Interesting where loyalty drew its line. Their gazes locked. The room held its breath. Finally, Matthias bowed, shallow and stiff. If you believe I am tied to this Darius, I welcome any investigation. Search my accounts, tear apart my house. I will cooperate fully. Liar, my wolf whispered. The word sat heavy on my tongue, but I swallowed it. This wasn't my fight to lead. Not yet. Later, when the court had been dismissed in uneasy clusters, and Matthias left under escort that looked polite but wasn't, Joshua and I stood alone in his study, the door bolted behind us. He braced his hands on the desk, head bowed. The anger he'd controlled in public trembled under his skin now, hot and lethal. He knew, I said quietly. Before we said a word, he knew something had turned. I smelled it too, Joshua said, but smell isn't proof. Yet, I moved closer, close enough that our shoulders almost touched. You rattled them. That's a start. He huffed a humorless breath. I want more than rattled. I want names carved in stone. Silence settled. The fire snapped softly. His scent wrapped around me, pine, steel, storm. Vivian. His voice had shifted, the king receding, the man stepping forward. Yes. He straightened and turned to face me fully. Whatever mask he used in court was gone. What remained was raw, tired, and too honest. We need to address this, he said, before it tears apart everything I'm trying to protect. My heart stuttered. This? The bond. His eyes darkened, gold ringing the pupils. My wolf doesn't quiet when you're near. Yours doesn't either. We both know what that means. The room seemed to tilt. We haven't. We don't need to touch for it to exist, he said. Fate doesn't care about our schedules. I swallowed. And you still think you can ignore it? I think I have to, he said. If I claim you now, in the middle of this, while I'm accusing nobles of regicide, they'll tear the kingdom apart pretending it's about honor when it's really about power. Every house that wanted their daughter on this throne will see you as an insult, a weakness they can exploit. It would be worse than gossip about the Omega in the royal wing, I said, trying for humor and failing. It would be war, he said simply. Not just against me. Against you. Against every Omega who thought your mating meant the rules had changed. Pain burned behind my ribs. Maybe they should change. They need to, he said. But not like this. Not rushed. Not as ammunition for men like Matthias. So what? My voice came out thin. We just pretend this isn't happening? His gaze softened, and that hurt more than any harshness would have. "We don't pretend," he said. "We endure. We find my mother's killer. We break the ones who think they own this throne. Then we decide if the kingdom survives us, choosing each other." It was the closest thing to hope he could offer. It still felt like a knife. "I understand," I said. "Do you?" my wolf snarled. "Because I didn't." "Not really. Not in the part of me that wanted his mark like a heartbeat." He stepped closer, stopping just shy of touch. "I chose the crown over everything once," he said quietly. "I won't lie and say I regret it. But if I drag you into that choice without giving you the chance to walk away, that would be another kind of betrayal." "I'm not walking away," I said. "If I wanted safe, I wouldn't have handed you that chest." His hand lifted, hovered near my cheek, then curled into a fist and dropped. "Then we hold the line," he said, "until it's safe to cross it. If it ever is." My heart cracked on the if. I nodded, because I couldn't trust my voice. The mate bond thrummed between us, a live wire we both refused to grab, burning us anyway. Outside, the court of vipers sharpened their fangs. Inside that small, quiet room, the Alpha King and his Omega bait tried to pretend their hearts weren't already bleeding for something they might never be allowed to claim. The package arrived before dawn, dropped on the edge of Joshua's desk like it had grown there during the night. No seal, no sender, just thick brown paper tied with a strip of rough twine. He stood staring at it as if it were a live thing. I hovered near the door, every hair on my arms raised. "Who brought it?" he asked. "Guard on the night rotation. Found it outside your study," Joseph said. "No scent but ours. No one saw a thing." Joshua's jaw flexed. "Of course not." He cut the twine with a claw and peeled back the paper. A leather-bound journal slid out, edges darkened, spine cracked from years of use. Beneath it, a stack of thin ledgers and stamped bank sheets. Darius's name sat at the top of each page like a bruise. My wolf went still. Joshua opened the journal in the middle. Cramped handwriting exploded across the pages. Names, numbers, short, ugly phrases. "He kept everything," I whispered. "All of it." "Criminals love records," Joseph said grimly. "They don't trust memory." Joshua flipped toward the back. The ink changed, heavier, the strokes shakier. The last few entries were dated within weeks of Queen Alara's death. He read silently at first. Then his lips moved. "The woman is sharper than they said," he murmured. Queen saw the ledger gaps. "She knows someone is building an army outside her sight. She thinks it is the brother or the council. She does not know it is her husband's friend." His voice roughened on the last word. A chill slid down my spine. "Keep going." His hands tightened on the leather, but he turned the page. "He came to me himself tonight," Joshua read. "Matthias. Said the Queen would ruin years of work if she kept digging. Offered triple my usual fee to silence her. I refused. I don't take contracts on queens." Joshua's shoulders loosened an inch, then locked again as his gaze dropped lower. "He threatened my son," he continued. "Said accidents happen. Said if I did not do it, he would find someone who liked killing more than I do. I told him I am not a butcher. He smiled and said I already was." The room felt suddenly too small, the air too thin. "Last page," Joseph said quietly. Joshua turned. The final entry was shorter, ink blotched like the hand holding the pen had been shaking. "Job completed. Queen dead. Matthias satisfied," he read flatly. "He gave me the chest as proof she would not be coming back. Told me to hide it, keep it safe in case he ever needed leverage. Said no one would believe me if I talked. He was right. No one ever looks closely at a rogue who dies in the dark." My stomach lurched. "He names him, directly." Joshua's fingers dug into the leather so hard I heard it creak. "There's more," he forced out. "She begged him once, you know. The Queen. She called him brother and offered him mercy. Told him to return what he stole, disband his private army, and she would keep his secret for the kingdom's sake." He smiled and kissed her hand and then hired me the same night. Silence slammed down. It wasn't just betrayal on the page. It was anatomy. Step by step. Trust. Bargain. Knife. Joshua set the journal down like it weighed more than his armor. For a second, he just stared at it. When he lifted his head, something inside his eyes had broken. 10 years, he said. The words sounded wrong in his mouth, like they didn't fit anymore. 10 years I've heard him talk about her, tell stories at feasts, give me advice in her name. 10 years he's watched me mourn while he sat beside me wearing the same grief he paid for. Joshua. I moved toward him on instinct. He stepped back, as if he couldn't risk being touched. He was there, he said. Every time I thought I'd drown, he was there, telling me she'd be proud, telling me I'd done the right thing, trusting the investigation, telling me to let it go. His laugh was a raw, ugly sound, and I thanked him. This isn't on you, I said. He lied to all of you. He wore your family's pain like armor. I let him, Joshua snapped, then closed his eyes briefly. I made him regent when my father died. I gave him control of the war chests, the courts. I handed him everything he wanted, and he only needed to kill 2 people to get it. 3, Joseph said quietly. Darius, when he became a liability. Maybe more. The ledgers lay open on the desk now, rows of numbers and stamped seals spelling out what the journal had already confessed. Payments from accounts Matthias managed, laundered through fronts and shell names, all leading to Darius Gray. Sums that doubled around the time of the Queen's death. Quiet transfers into private funds labeled security projects and border fortifications that never reached any border. A private army, built in shadows while a trusting queen pushed reforms in the light. She gave him a chance, I said, throat tight. She offered him mercy, and he answered with a blade. Joshua's hands braced on the desk, knuckles white. His wolf pushed hard enough that the air vibrated, power rolling off him in waves. I thought my father died of grief, he said. Maybe he did. Maybe he realized too late the friend at his side was the one who gutted his queen. Maybe he looked at me and saw the son he'd left to that snake, and his heart simply stopped. He drew a breath that sounded like it scraped his lungs raw. No more, he said. My wolf went still at the tone. It wasn't a threat. It was a sentence. Joseph nodded, eyes grim. We have enough to move openly. Journal, letters, banking records. Even the most cowardly noble won't stand beside Matthias after this. They'll try, Joshua said. They'll say the journal is forged, the records fabricated, that I'm chasing ghosts because my Omega found a pretty box at a fair. His gaze found mine then, finally, and for a heartbeat I saw the boy who'd lost his mother, not the king. I dragged you into this, he said, and now that we have truth, it's soaked in blood. You didn't drag me, I answered. I walked in, eyes open. Not open enough, he murmured. No one deserves to see how deep this rot goes. He closed the journal gently, almost tender, as if it were a body. Then he straightened, and the tenderness vanished, burned away by something far colder. Send word, he told Joseph. Summon the council, quietly. I want them in the chamber before rumor gets there first. Joseph inclined his head and slipped out, leaving us alone with the fire, the papers, and 10 years of lies. Joshua reached for the chest, fingers resting on the engraved crest. He used my mother's memory to hold this kingdom together, he said. I'm going to use the truth of her death to tear his world apart. His voice was calm, too calm. Are you all right? I asked. No, he said. But I will be, after I look Matthias in the eye and make him understand exactly what he bought with my mother's blood. My wolf shivered. Not in fear, in recognition. This wasn't just about justice anymore. It was about a son finally seeing the monster that had slept beside his throne for 10 years and deciding the time for mercy had ended the night his mother died. The throne room filled like a condemned hall at dawn. Every noble, every house, every wolf with rank enough to matter crowded the space, scents thick and nervous. They didn't know why they'd been summoned. They just knew the king had called, and refusal meant treason. Joshua sat on the throne, crown set firm, armor polished to mirror black. I stood to his right again, visible, deliberate. The court noticed. They always did. Lord Matthias entered last, silver hair gleaming, expression calm. He nodded to familiar faces, settled near the front like this was just another council session. Joshua let the silence stretch until it hurt. Then he stood. We are here, he said, voice carrying to every corner. Because a lie has lived in this court for 10 years. Today it dies. Matthias's smile didn't falter. My king? Joshua descended the steps slowly, guards flanking him, carrying a wooden box sealed in wax. They set it on a table at the room's center. 10 years ago, Joshua said. My mother was murdered in her chambers. A steward was blamed. A rogue was suspected. Justice, we were told, had been served. He broke the seal and opened the box. Inside lay Darius's journal, the banking ledgers, the letters. Physical proof. Stacked like kindling. We were lied to, Joshua said, by someone we trusted. Someone who sat beside my father and called him brother. Someone who advised me, comforted me, shaped this kingdom in my grief. His gaze cut to Matthias. Someone who paid a rogue named Darius Gray to kill Queen Alara because she discovered he was building a private army to overthrow this throne. The room erupted. Gasps, shouts, denials. Matthias's face went pale, then red. This is absurd, he snapped. My king, you cannot believe. I have his journal, Joshua said, in his own hand. Your name, your payments, your threat against his son. He lifted the journal and read, voice steady and pitiless. Matthias came to me himself, said the queen would ruin years of work, offered triple my fee to silence her. I refused. He threatened my son, said accidents happen. I told him I am not a butcher. He smiled and said I already was. Silence crashed down. Joshua held the journal higher. He names you, Matthias, over and over, payments traced to accounts you controlled, letters proving you funneled gold into private forces while my mother pushed reforms you hated. Matthias's mask cracked. Something cold slid into his eyes. She was a fool, he said. The room went deathly still. A fool, Matthias repeated, louder now, shedding pretense like old skin. Your mother thought giving Omega's power would strengthen the kingdom. All it did was weaken the natural order. Wolves are not equals. Alphas lead. Omegas serve. She tried to blur that line and paid for it. Joshua's wolf surged, power slamming into the room so hard nobles staggered. His eyes blazed gold, claws sliding free. You killed her, he said, voice dropping to gravel, because she believed people like Vivian deserved more than chains. Yes, Matthias smiled, sharp and vicious. And I would do it again. Your father was too weak to stop her. You were too young to understand. So I did what was necessary. The court exploded. Shouts for blood, for justice, for his head on a pike. Tradition was clear. Regicide demanded death. Immediate, brutal, the kind that sent a message carved in screams. Joshua's claws flexed. Every line of him screamed violence. His wolf wanted it. The court expected it. I stepped forward. Not close. Just enough that he could see me in his peripheral vision. Your mother believed in breaking cycles, I said quietly. Just for him. His head turned slightly. Gold still burned in his eyes, but something else flickered beneath. The hall held its breath. Joshua exhaled, slow and deliberate, and his claws retracted. Matthias, he said. You are guilty of regicide, treason, and conspiracy. Tradition demands I tear your throat out here in front of witnesses and let your blood soak this floor. Matthias lifted his chin, defiant even now. But my mother, Joshua continued, believed that strength came from choosing mercy when violence was easier. She believed in building something better than endless cycles of blood. He stepped closer, until they were almost nose to nose. You took her life because she dared to imagine Omegas as equals. I will honor her vision by proving you wrong. Matthias's sneer faltered. You are stripped of rank, title, lands, and assets, Joshua said. Everything you built, everything you stole, returns to the crown. You will be exiled to the farthest border under permanent guard. You will live long enough to watch the kingdom you tried to destroy flourish without you. And when you die alone and forgotten, history will remember you as the coward who killed a queen because he was too weak to accept change. Shock rippled through the court. Nobles stared, mouths open, disbelief written across every face. Matthias's face twisted. You think exile is mercy? He spat. You think, I think, Joshua cut in, that killing you makes me like you, and I would rather die than carry that stain. He turned his back on Matthias, a deliberate insult, and faced the court. My mother fought for a kingdom where Omegas could stand beside Alphas without fear. Where power came from justice, not violence. I will finish what she started, and anyone who thinks that makes me weak is welcome to test it. His gaze swept the room, daring opposition. No one spoke. Guards moved forward, seizing Matthias by the arms. He fought, snarling, but they hauled him toward the doors. "This isn't over," he shouted. "You'll regret this, boy. She raised you soft, and it will kill you." The doors slammed shut, cutting him off. The throne room stood silent, stunned. Joshua climbed the steps and sat again, shoulders tight, hands gripping the armrests. "Court dismissed," he said. They fled. When the hall emptied, only I remained. He looked at me, exhaustion written in every line of his face. "Did I just make the worst mistake of my reign?" he asked quietly. "No," I said. "You made the hardest choice. There's a difference." His mouth twisted into something almost like a smile. "She would have liked you." "I know," I said. "That's why you're still breathing." He huffed a rough laugh, then dropped his head into his hands. I crossed to him and rested my hand on his shoulder. He didn't pull away. Outside, the kingdom would whisper. Nobles would question. Tradition would scream. But in that throne room, with his mother's killer sent into exile, and her dream still burning, the Alpha King who chose mercy over vengeance finally started to look like the leader she'd always believed he could be. The tomb sat in the heart of the old forest, stone and silence under winter stars. Joshua led me there 3 days after Matthias's exile, when the court had finally stopped snarling and started scheming. His hand stayed warm around mine the entire walk, neither of us speaking. The crypt was carved white marble, simple and beautiful. Queen Alara's name glowed in the moonlight, etched deep. Fresh flowers sat at the base, replaced daily by someone who remembered. Joshua released my hand and knelt. An Alpha King, on his knees, before an Omega. My breath caught. My mother believed in choosing truth over tradition, he said, gaze lifting to mine. She died for that belief. I exiled the man who killed her because she taught me mercy could be stronger than violence. He reached into his coat and pulled out something small, wrapped in dark cloth. "This was in the chest," he said. "Hidden in a false bottom I didn't know existed until yesterday." He unwrapped it slowly. A crown emerged, delicate, silver, set with moonstones that caught the light like captured stars. Queen Alara's crown, smaller than the king's, but no less powerful. She wore this the day she convinced my father to let Omegas serve in positions of authority, Joshua said. The day she stood in front of the entire council and told them that strength without compassion was just cruelty with a throne. His hands trembled holding it. "Vivian," he said, "I have spent 10 years trying to be the king she wanted, but I think what she really wanted was for me to be brave enough to choose love when duty said I couldn't." My heart stopped. "The court will lose their minds," he continued. "Nobles will call it weakness. Houses will threaten to break alliances. They will say an Omega Queen ruins everything my bloodline built." He smiled, fierce and wild. "Let them." He held the crown higher. "Be my mate," he said. "Be my queen. Stand beside me and prove that the strongest kingdoms are the ones brave enough to shatter their own cages." Tears blurred my vision. "Joshua, say yes," he said, "or say no. But don't say the court won't allow it. I am done asking permission to love you." The bond between us roared to life, a living thing that had been starving and finally saw food. "Yes," I whispered. He surged to his feet, crown forgotten on the ground, and kissed me. The world tilted. His mouth claimed mine with 10 years of grief and hunger and hope, all tangled into one devastating strike. My hands fisted in his coat, pulling him closer, and his arms banded around me like he'd break before he let go. The bond snapped into place. It didn't ease in gently. It slammed home, a lightning strike that burned through every nerve, every breath, every wall we'd built. My wolf howled. His answered. The sound echoed through the forest, feral and triumphant. When we finally broke apart, gasping, his eyes blazed full gold. "Mine," he said. "Yours," I answered. He picked up the crown, settled it on my head with shaking hands, and kissed me again, softer this time, reverent. "My mother would have loved you," he murmured against my lips. "I know," I said. "She had good taste." He laughed, the sound surprised and real. 3 nights later, under the full moon, the packs gathered. Not just Silver Moon, all of them. Allies, rivals, wolves who'd come to see if the rumors were true, if the Alpha King had really chosen an Omega with no bloodline, no title, no claim beyond courage. Joshua stood in the center of the clearing, firelight painting him gold and shadow. I stood beside him in Alara's crown and a gown the royal seamstresses had worked day and night to finish. The court lined the edges, faces ranging from horror to fascination to barely concealed rage. Joshua didn't care. He raised his voice, and the forest went silent. My mother died because she believed Omegas deserved more than the roles tradition forced on them, he said. She died because she dared to imagine a kingdom built on justice, not just power. He turned to me, took my hand. This is Vivian, he said. My true mate, my queen, the Omega who handed me the evidence that caught my mother's killer, the wolf brave enough to stand beside me when tradition said she should bow. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A few nobles stepped forward, faces tight. This is an insult, one snarled. To your bloodline, to every alliance. Any kingdom too weak to survive an Omega queen, Joshua cut in, voice dropping to a growl, does not deserve to stand. His eyes blazed. Power rolled off him in waves. I am your king, he said, and I have chosen my mate. If that offends you, the border is open. Leave. But know this history will remember you as the cowards who fled because love frightened you more than war ever did. Silence. Then, from the back, a younger wolf stepped forward. Then another. Then a cluster of Omegas who'd served in silence their whole lives. They knelt. Not to him, to us. The gesture spread like fire. First the young. Then the ones who'd lost too much to tradition. Then, slowly, even some of the older wolves bent their knees, acknowledging what they couldn't stop. Joshua's hand tightened on mine. He pulled me close, tipped my chin up, and sank his teeth into the curve of my neck. The claiming mark burned, blazed, settled into my skin like it had always belonged there. My wolf sang. The bond flared so bright I thought I'd shatter from it. When he pulled back, blood on his lips, his eyes were molten. Mine, he said, loud enough for every wolf to hear. Yours, I answered, and bit him back. The mark took. His wolf howled. The clearing erupted, some in rage, some in shock, most in reluctant awe. But we didn't hear them. We only heard each other, two wolves who'd been invisible and alone finally seen. The Alpha King and his Omega Queen, bound, claimed, unbreakable. And the kingdom would just have to survive it. The winter festival burned bright this year. Torches lined the courtyard, music spilled from the great hall, and the entire kingdom seemed determined to celebrate like the world had shifted under their feet, because it had. I stood at the window of our private chambers, watching the crowd below dance and drink and laugh. Joshua's arms wrapped around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder, both of us staring down at the chaos we'd created. They're louder than last year, I murmured. They have more to celebrate, he said. Regicide solved, traitor exiled, Omega Queen still breathing despite half the court betting against it. I elbowed him lightly. You make it sound dramatic. It was dramatic, he said. You handed me a haunted jewelry box and took down a kingdom's worth of lies. That's the definition of dramatic. Behind us, in the corner of the room, the chest sat gleaming, not on a shelf, not locked away, transformed into a cradle. Inside, swaddled in soft furs, our daughter slept. Tiny fists curled near her face, dark hair already thick, her breathing steady and perfect. Elara, named for the queen who'd started it all. Joshua crossed to her, careful not to wake her, and ran a finger along the edge of the cradle. The same ornate scrollwork, the same royal crest, the same initials that had pulled us into this storm. She's going to ask about this someday, he said quietly. Why her cradle has her grandmother's name carved into it. And we'll tell her the truth, I said, that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is refuse to stay invisible. He looked at me, gold flickering in his eyes. You changed everything. We changed everything, I corrected. A knock sounded. Joseph stepped in, grinning. They're calling for you both. Speech time. Joshua groaned. I hate speeches. You're a king, Joseph said. Speeches are half the job. The other half is not killing people who annoy me, Joshua muttered, but he offered me his arm. I took it, and we descended together. The great hall roared when we entered. Wolves from every pack, nobles who'd bent or broken under the new laws, Omegas who now held positions in the guard, the archives, the council. Faces that had sneered a year ago now lifted glasses in genuine respect, or at least fear disguised as respect. I'd take either. Joshua raised his hand, and the hall quieted. 1 year ago, he said, an Omega servant I barely noticed walked onto my dais and handed me a piece of my mother's stolen past. His gaze found mine. I thought she was reckless, stupid, even. Turned out she was the bravest wolf in this entire kingdom. Heat climbed my neck. He squeezed my hand. She gave me truth when I'd been drowning in lies, he continued. She stood beside me when tradition said she should kneel. She became my mate when the court said it would destroy us. He lifted his glass. To Vivian, he said. The Omega who saved a kingdom by refusing to be silent. The queen who proved that strength comes in forms we're too afraid to recognize. The mother of my daughter, who will grow up knowing Omegas are not chains to be managed, they are wolves to be honored. The hall erupted. I blinked back tears as glasses lifted, voices roared, and the kingdom that had once ignored me now screamed my name. Joshua leaned close, lips brushing my ear. What's your favorite moment? He asked. From this whole insane year. I thought about it. The chest. The confrontation. The exile. The mating ceremony. The crown settling on my head. Our daughter's first cry. The night you knelt, I said finally. In front of your mother's tomb. You were a king, and you knelt for me. His smile softened. Mine was earlier. When? The moment you handed me the chest and I realized the invisible girl I'd been too afraid to see had just shattered every wall I'd built. My throat tightened. Come on, he said, tugging me toward the center of the hall. Dance with me. Let them see what they almost destroyed. So we danced. The Alpha King and his Omega Queen, spinning under torchlight, while their daughter slept in a cradle built from tragedy, and our kingdom learned, inch by painful inch, that the most powerful revolutions start with a single act of courage. I had walked onto a dais with a ghost in my hands. I had refused to bow when bowing was safer. I had loved a king the world said I couldn't have, and in doing so, I had become the queen a broken kingdom didn't know it needed. The chest had been a gift, but the real gift was this. Learning that sometimes, the most dangerous and beautiful thing you can do is let yourself be seen, even when the world insists you should disappear. Especially then. So tell me where you watching from. And what is your favorite moment in this story? Don't forget to subscribe for more stories.